definitely there is a time change, so it's probably good night in the United States. And sorry for all the hell that been raised in your Twitter after you made an announcement that you'll be participating in my propaganda Kremlin terrible awful genocide show. Man, what other names do they have for me and the program of mine?
I'm very happy to be here, and I'm familiar with your work, and I really do appreciate it. And I think if anyone has to apologize right now, it's me as an American who, my taxpayer dollars are being used to wage a proxy world war against Russia.
Well, Jackson, thank you so much. At the same time, I have to say that on a personal level, I love America. I spent a lot of years working in the United States. I have no problem with people of America. The only problems that I do have with politicians of the United States that are not willing to tell the truth and they're not willing to face the reality. And nowadays, when they're supporting Nazi regime and they're lying to the face of American people, that's very disappointing. But how do you see it all from the United States? Because you saw your president in Ukraine on the present days and in Poland, but not in the United States, where there are a lot of problems and a lot of places where people are waiting for the president.
You're exactly right. I mean, the American people feel just, left out to dry, essentially. We've got President's Day underway in the U.S. right now, and Joe Biden is having a little tour through Ukraine and through Poland as he promises to send hundreds of millions more dollars in military support, weapons, munition to Ukraine as they continue to escalate this proxy war against the Russian people. Okay. And as you pointed out, we've got a lot of problems here. We've got probably 500 to 600,000 homeless Americans that are wondering where they're going to get their next meal each and every day. And just as we're recording this in East Palestine, Ohio, which is Middle America, it's part of the, is part of the region of our country that built what America is today. There are many people suffering right now with no help, no aid, no assistance from the federal government or the Biden administration, as they are suffering from the health impacts of a train derailment and a controlled burn of chemicals that are being released into the atmosphere, into the waterway right now. So a lot of people are wondering, why is Joe Biden muddling around in Ukraine if he's the president of America? It's a question I think we all know the answer to. It's a rhetorical one, but it's a question, and the answer that is to be provided is that simply he stands with Ukraine more than he stands with the American people.
But what's the point? What's the point of all this American activity in Europe? What's the real purpose of all this?
Well, the American people understand full and well that Russia and China are two major commodities producing nations. Russia in particular is a nation that upholds, traditional family values. Russia is a nation that is not trying to sexualize children or anything of the sort. And America, specifically Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, neoconservative members of the Republican Party, understand that that is a threat to what they want to instill upon the American populace, okay? Russia becoming strong represents hope for so many across the world that have fallen victim to the United States' imperialism and, London's imperialism for many, many decades now. And Russia is not bending the knee. It's not rolling over and, admitting defeat. And Russia understands that if they did do that, they would end up like the nations of Syria or Libya or the former Yugoslavia. Not to say that they rolled over and accepted defeat, but Russia would be rebel. So I, as an American patriot, even more specifically, whose ancestors sailed to this country on the Mayflower, wrote the Mayflower Compact, fought in the American Revolution, I'm very happy to see what the Russians and the Russian people and your allies are doing.
But how come that Russia, that for so many years loved America and loved American people, and we're all there for the United States, and now we ended up as being number one threat for the United States, although we never made a step against the United States? When the tragedy of 9/11 happened, our president was the first one to place a call, and we did whatever we could, even that was a mistake right now, as we understand, helping in Afghanistan. But when it all went wrong, and how come that America lost Russia, and probably for good?
I think America has lost Russia for good, assuming that the leadership class in America does not change. And the reason for this is because, as we kind of just discussed, Russia refused to bend the knee. Russia says that we are a sovereign country. Sure, we can respect the fact that maybe America wants to try and maintain this unipolarity, this hegemony across the globe. And Putin even said this as such, I believe, in 2016 when he was talking to Oliver Stone in those famous documentaries. He said, if the United States wants to try and maintain this global supremacy, they can try to do that so long as they don't meddle in the sovereign affairs of Russia, which obviously they've done in your media, in your you trying to infiltrate your labor unions, trying to infiltrate corporations, trying to infiltrate government, running these proxy candidates that are sellouts to the American CIA to infiltrate your government. And all of that has failed up until this point, thanks in large part due to the leadership of Vladimir Putin. So now the United States has taken the gloves off and is waging an all-out war against Russian civilization. And it didn't work when Napoleon tried this. It didn't work when Hitler tried this. I don't think it's going to work now. But they're giving it everything they've got. And I think matters are worse than they've ever been between the United States and Russia. Even in the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union still had lines of communication open. We don't have that now. And as a result of all the treaties and agreements that the West has broken, refused to implement, and frankly torn up over the past several decades, Russia now today, as we saw in Putin's amazing illuminating speech before the Federal Assembly, said that Russia was going to be suspending its participation in the START agreement. So I don't think things are headed in the right direction. It's not because of Russia. It's because of the United States.
Well, actually, your guys on Twitter were pushing you to ask me questions about my Italian villa, but that's not actually the main point of interest. They should be asking you another question. How come that Vladimir Soloviev is an honorary citizen of the state of Alabama? That's probably even worse for them.
I didn't know that.
Well, that was back in 1990, yeah.
Of Alabama. But, Alabama's a great state.
Yeah, well, I love it, Alabama is a great state, that's for sure. But not only Alabama, United States is a great place. The only question is, so why do they change so badly? Because it has nothing to do with America that I used to know and that I used to love. Because that was a country of hard-working people. And nowadays, it's a country of weird politicians that are trying to bend Russia. And they think that the problem is Putin. No, it's not Putin. It's Russian people. We're just the way we are. And it looks like Biden doesn't understand at all words that he pronounces addressing Russian people. It looks like someone wrote this speech of his in Poland. And it's, to us it sounds like Nazi speech. No, surrender Russian soldiers and the Russian population. We'll give you everything. We're not your enemy. Well, yeah, right. Wake up, man. You are. Too bad.
He says we're not your enemy, as he then follows up the statement by boasting about how many, pieces of artillery he's sending to kill Russian servicemen and trying to depose, your sovereign government. It's really quite something. And yeah, you're right. He really doesn't understand much. We know that Joe Biden's not the one in control. He's not the one writing his own tweets right now. Joe Biden is controlled by a satanic cabal of DC deep state leadership, people who most of the American public will never know the names of. We never elected these people, yet they hold an undue level of control over where our country goes and how we operate globally. I mean, I think you say you have love for the American people. I have love for the Russian people. And I think most Americans would agree with that, even in the face of all the lies that we've been told by the likes of our mass media in the United States for years, be it Russiagate, be it bogus stories about Russian bounties on Americans in Afghanistan, or the lies now about Ukraine. It's just simple. The American people have love for people all across the world. We want prosperity for all people. And I think just like Russian people and just like Chinese people and people in whatever country, we want to see the masses, the global masses, lifted out of poverty. We want to see industrialization. We want to see growth. Then again, the American satanic political leadership opposes all those very things.
This sabotage, this terrorist attack on the Russian pipeline, how do you see it?
I saw it for what it was the day it took place. It's a United States terrorist attack, one of the largest industrial terrorist attacks in human history. And what I'm so shocked by is that there has not been a single member of the United States Congress, Republican or Democrat, who has even introduced articles of impeachment for Joe Biden over giving this the green light. And I'm sure you're well aware, Seymour Hersh, one of the most, accomplished American journalists of our lifetime, exposed in a very detailed article just how the United States went about committing this terrorist attack on the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines. And, this was done with Norwegian help. And it was done unto not just, Russian infrastructure, but also our own allies' infrastructure in Germany. And Germany hasn't spoken out about this because they're good slaves to the American deep state. They want to make sure that they maintain their relationship even in the face of these terror attacks. So it's very frustrating to see. And, if I may, the reason why it was so clear to, I'm sure you, myself, and many others, the day this took place, when we saw those photos of the terror attack on our phone screens, is because we've seen this before. It wasn't all that long ago, it was several hundred years ago, in which Cortez sailed to a new land with his 600 men. And upon arrival, he told his men to burn the ships that they arrived on this new land with. The reason why they did this is because he wanted his men to have a mentality of sincere fight. He wanted his men to understand that there was no choice of going back home to where they came. They had to fight and they had to conquer the new land. It's the same mentality here. The United States didn't want Germany to have any hope or any choice of negotiating with Russia, removing sanctions or anything of the sort on Russia. And they blew up the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines because this was the one avenue that Russia had of maybe encouraging German authorities to start removing sanctions, stop the endless, fiscal support and military support for Ukraine. Because if Russia could tell German authorities that they would allow for the flow of natural gas on the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines again, and Russia dropped the sanctions, I think that would have made a lot of German authorities really happy. And I think it was something they were considering.
Jackson, how easy it for you to do your job in States? I hope that you're not feeling any form of pressure, at least legal pressure, because Russia, let's say, right now is probably one of the last free speech state where you can say whatever you want and people won't knock at your door and you won't be arrested. And even if you hate Russia, well, you're free to leave. And whatever you have won't be arrested even without any court decision. So nothing going to happen with your property like it happened with mine in Italy, even if you, if you don't support official point of view. But what amazes me that with all those words about love to Russian people, at the same time, American government is willing to sanction another 200 Russians, including members of their families. That reminds me of Stalin times, where you have to punish not only the person that you hate, but also members of his family.
Yeah, I mean, America is better than most countries right now. I mean, in Germany, if you so much as say that you think that we should, German leadership should put themselves in the shoes of Putin and consider how the Russian people feel right now, German journalists are being arrested for saying stuff like that. They're being put in prison. They're being fined. America's not that bad. And America isn't seizing our homes for saying what I'm saying and what, many others are saying. But it's still, there's a level of difficulty. I mean, we have big tech in this country that censors anyone and everyone virtually who speaks in defense of the Russian special military operation or says anything that is mildly positive about Russia or Putin. And they wield the weapons that they have quite effectively. I mean, my YouTube show has been censored. It's been deplatformed. It's been demonetized. I've been banned from many payment platforms. I'm sure, this is kind of the norm, the average for Russians at this point, for just average
Well, they
Russians.
just canceled my YouTube channel after I reached 1.5 million subscribers. They just throw my YouTube away.
I tried looking for it. I couldn't find it. So that's where
That's
where it
the
went.
reason. They just killed it.
Yeah.
That's
So,
what they call freedom of speech. No need for court
it's-
decision, no need for hearing. Just get the hell out of our platform. That's what we call freedom.
and you bring up, the Stalin era. I mean, at this point, I feel like we're living in worse than Stalin era here in the under Joe Biden. It's so bad, and many people don't even understand it because they simply just buy all the propaganda that is told to them by the likes of the mass media like CNN and MSNBC. It's very unfortunate. They're teaching young Americans to hate free speech and hate the right to bear arms, which are very uniquely traditional American values that we hold near and dear to our hearts.
What happens after Biden? Because some people in Russia, they do believe that we just have to wait and the new president, if they're going to be new president, going to be better. I think that they're mistaken, that right now Biden is not actually that important of a figure. He's just a doll. He's a representative of something that much more deeper and important than just personality of, let me put it this way, very old, and I'm not so sure that completely sane person. I'm not sure that he knows where he is. I'm pretty much sure that he thinks that he's right now in Washington and enjoying the company of his wife, and he doesn't realize that he's in Poland.
Yeah, I mean, Biden is the perfect display of the decaying rot that is the American political empire, right? And you're right. I think that if people are hopeful that post Joe Biden, we're going to have any significant change in foreign leadership in the United States, I think they're mistaken. With one caveat, potentially Donald Trump. And I say potentially because, of course, Donald Trump provided a lot of lethal aid to Ukraine in preparation for this proxy war that's currently underway as well. But his tone is it's the only one of the character that I've seen of senior statesmen in the United States at this point, in that he is saying that we need to stop the funding of the Ukrainian government and military. We need to stop sending money to Ukrainian Nazis. We need to stop the madness and have peace negotiations. And again, you don't have to be like me. You don't have to be pro-Russia and pro-Putin and understand the nature of what's going on right now with this SMO to support what Donald Trump is saying. He just simply wants peace. He doesn't want war. And I think that's admirable. And I guess if there's anyone that I'm hopeful for in attempting to negotiate or bring peace or settle down the tensions, it would be him.
Especially when he mentioned that it takes me 24 hours. I'll just call two guys and you know the names, and I'll tell them this and I'll tell them that, and they will have peace. Not that easy. Not tonight, sunshine, should I say. Not that easy. Jackson, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Jackson Hinkle, журналист, политический